I was sexually abused as a child, first by the musical director of our church, and then by the priest that I turned to for help. If you were sexually abused as a child, in the state of New Jersey, you only have 2 years from the point of reasonable discovery to initiate a civil lawsuit. Well, it took me 32 years for me to be able to even speak about it. These are the facts. 1 out of every 3 girls and 1 out of every 6 boys has been sexually abused as a child. That's Jimmy, Mike, Tom, Billy, Sam, and me. 1 out of 6. 1 out of 6 out of all the people you know, out of your friends, your family, your coworkers, 1 out of 6 has been sexually abused as a child. And they've lived with the secret possibly their whole life, a secret that can destroy a lifetime. It nearly destroyed mine, but I was one of the lucky ones. I never gave up on my faith, and I was able to find love along the way, and I was able to find my voice. My intention is to break the silence, to encourage and inspire anyone who's walked on the same path as I have, to be able to find their own voice, to be able to come out of the darkness, and to be able to tell their own story, no matter how long it takes. Of God and Gucci transcends the subject of childhood sexual abuse and becomes a story about living your life fearlessly, following your dreams, and following your heart. Father, forgive you, for you have sinned. It's been 32 years since my last abuse. My story begins in 1976, St. Paul's Roman Catholic Church in the Greenville section of Jersey City. I drew St. Paul's Church for the cover of our parish bulletin when I was 13. 3 years later, I would daydream about hanging myself in its steeple. My family had hoped that my involvement with the church would help me find my way. Instead, I would be taken down an ungodly path by not 1 but 2 men of the cloth, who would violently and repeatedly abuse me over the course of the next 4 years. I was 13 years old when the abuse first started with Keith Pecklers. He was cunning, strategic, sadistic. He had been promising me for the course of about 6 months that his girlfriend would have sex with me. Pecklers told me to go into his bedroom and to get ready, that his girlfriend was coming over. I did as he told me to do. He told me to get undressed. I did. He came into the bedroom. We were waiting for his girlfriend to show up. She never did. At one point, he grabbed me by the back of my neck, and that's when the abuse first started. For the next 6 months or so, the abuse would happen every week. And then a new priest came to the parish, Father Tom. I told him what Pecklers had been doing to me. Father Tom assured me that he would take care of it. He did. Only for he himself to begin to take over abusing me for the next 4 years. Father Tom was a wolf in sheep's clothing. He would come over for dinner every week. He would spend holidays with us. This one time, Father Tom asked my parents if he would be able to take me away to a hotel down the Jersey Shore. My parents thought it was a great idea to spend a weekend away with the priest. I can remember being in a hotel room lying in bed watching TV. Father Tom said that he was going to take a shower. And then after a few moments, Father Tom came out of the bathroom. He came out of the bathroom and he walked over to where I was laying and bent over to the night table to get a cigarette. He took the cigarette, he lit it up. He looked at me and he said, "You're okay with this, aren't you? Are you okay with this?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, of course I am. Of course I am, I'm fine with it." I didn't know what to think. I just didn't know what to think about it. And he stood there and he smoked a cigarette. And then after a few moments, he turned around and he walked back into the bathroom to take a shower. Father Tom would tell me over and over again that the greatest gift that you could give to God would be to make love to another person. I just couldn't escape from the madness. I didn't have the tools, I didn't have the energy. I felt like my life was being drained completely out of my body. Never wavering in my faith, I prayed for a way out, and I was sent a real-life angel, Diane. I knew that she was sent to save me in some way. I had never felt the type of connection that I felt with Diane. I knew that she would help me get out of this. I was 15 and Diane was 26, married with 2 kids, but I just knew that we would always be together, that we would always be friends. After a while, her marriage started to fall apart, and we became even closer. Our relationship changed when I was 17, and I was finally able to admit to Diane what had been happening to me, how I was being abused mentally, physically, sexually. Diane embraced me. She loved me. She was able eventually to help me break away from the church. Once I was able to break away, I was finally able to pursue my dream of becoming a fashion designer. In 1980, I launched my own line of women's clothing, and Diane was my model. Within a year, my designs were selling throughout the country, with showrooms in New York, LA, and Miami. I was featured in Cosmopolitan magazine, Us magazine, and fashion editorials. I designed wardrobe for Demi Moore, The Sopranos, and John Bon Jovi.
Next, we're going to meet Renard, a young fashion designer from Bayonne, New Jersey. Renard began his career at the age of 19, and within a year was supplying stores in New York and New Jersey with original designs.
Things were going really well, and Diane and I finally got married. Diane and I have been married for 22 years. Even though we love each other so much, in my heart I had always felt like something was missing. That something was justice.
This has been a terrible scandal, and it still causes great emotion in many people. So a good question is exactly that. How has the church changed from the abuse scandal?
In 2008, I decided to bring charges against the Catholic Church and the 2 men who abused me.
The church is a divine institution. God made it.
The musical director who abused me when I was 14 is now the world's foremost authority on the Catholic liturgy. He's the professor of theology at the Gregorian Pontifical University in Rome, author of 6 books.
Since 2002, our bishops have cleaned the house, as it were. They've instituted practices and programs to make sure that the evils of sexual abuse are brought to light and that, really, they never occur again.
And he's the ABC News correspondent for Vatican Affairs.
We have Father Keith Pecklers with us. This week, we've heard so much about the priest sexual abuse scandal. We haven't heard, however, about a lot of things that a lot of American Catholics care about, whether priests should be allowed to marry, the shortage of priests. Any sense that these issues will now be overlooked?
That's a concern of mine, Dan, because when you look back over this week, the defining theme has clearly been the sexual abuse crisis and the Pope's speaking out.
The other priest, Father Tom Stanford, he left the priesthood in the early 1990s for reasons unknown. I was able to find him teaching children's CCD classes at a church in Wayne, New Jersey. When I brought my allegations against the church, Stanford was fired immediately. When they asked him if he had anything to say for himself, he said, "You can't change the past. What's done is done." Now I decided to tell my story, to fight and make change, to abolish the statute of limitations in the state of New Jersey. The bill is up for consideration, but it has yet to be passed. I don't think people realize the amount of political pressure that the Catholic Church has on our government. So on December 9, 2010, I testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The New Jersey Star-Ledger described it as me dropping a bombshell. It's time to make a change. It's time to put an end to clergy sexual abuse. It's time to stand up and to let our voices be heard, to make a difference. Now is the time for social justice. Now is the time to hold institutions and organizations responsible for what they have done to so many children. The church can no longer hide the fact that they are guilty for crimes against humanity. There are estimates that there are hundreds of thousands of children worldwide that have been abused by priests. It's happening everywhere, all over the world. And now is the time to stand up and to let our voices be heard.